we're going to be talking about Ākina's Pivot Coaching Support Program that we've been running for a couple of months now with various social enterprises. So what we'll do is we'll spend about 10 minutes just running through a few introductions of the people who are on the call for the coaches and for some of the social enterprises that we've asked to speak today. Then I'll briefly introduce what pivot coaching is all about and where it's come from. We'll then sort of run through a number of key themes that have sort of come out of the pivot coaching. So we'll spend about 30 minutes on that, and that'll be a bit of a discussion between my fellow coach Rowan and myself, and then we'll be bringing in our social enterprise friends to share some of their experiences. And then hopefully, if we've got time left at the end, we'll have about 15 minutes for Q&A. And of course, if you've got any questions as we go along, then put those in the chat box, but there'll be an opportunity hopefully at the end to ask questions as well. We may be able to go beyond the hour. I don't think there's a session afterwards, so if we need to, we can go on a bit longer, and if there's interest in people staying on. Next slide, please, Dan. Okay, Rowan, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Thank you. Kia ora everyone, ko Rowan Yeoman aho. I think I know about half of you, so really nice to see familiar faces. Hello to all of you that I haven't met yet. So very quickly, my background is in tech startups. I've been started working with tech startups probably about 12 years ago as an entrepreneur, as an investor, as an advisor in New Zealand and up in the US, and found my way into social enterprise with Ākina about 2013. Along the way, I've been a corporate consultant, so consulted to New Zealand's biggest companies on how to do innovation and how to make that happen. I also helped establish Startup Weekend, New Zealand's largest innovation ecosystem community, and was a co-creator of the Social Lean Canvas along the way. So lots of kind of thinking about and working with organizations that are trying to figure out how to have impact in a way that can scale to some degree of financial sustainability, and I'm really interested in how you put those things together in a way that's elegant and can work in new formations. So that's impact models and business models that we're going to talk about today. Yeah, I'll cut it there. But yeah, I've seen lots of things over the years, so hopefully have some useful stuff to share.
Thanks, Rowan. And kia ora everyone, I'm Guy Redding. I'm the Director of International Development at Ākina. I've been with Ākina for about 2.5 years. My background is a little bit different from Rose. I have a background in international development, so have worked in various places around the world, and the Solomon Islands and Fiji and Kenya. So I've spent about 20 years working in international development, always around sort of private sector development, SME development, and export promotion. And so Ro and I were two of the sort of authors of this pivot coaching, and sort of designed it sort of back in about April time, just as we were staring down the barrel of COVID-19. So that's a little bit about us. Okay, Tan, next slide, please. Okay, so now we'd like to introduce our social enterprise friends who are on the call. So maybe I could ask Caroline first from Fresh Desk to introduce yourself, Caroline.
Sure. Thanks, Guy. Kia ora, everyone. Nice to meet you. So I'm Caroline from Fresh Desk, and Fresh Desk is a cleaning social enterprise. We do commercial cleaning, and what our focus is investing in people. So that means, first off, we pay the living wage, which is still unusual in the cleaning industry. So that's $22.10 per hour at the moment. Then what we do is invest further in people's training and development. So we do like NZQA qualifications in cleaning and management. And then thirdly, we measure people's like well-being. So that what that looks like is respect within the team, respect from customers. And lastly, we do kaitiakitanga. So that's 100% eco products and practices with the purpose of looking after our planet.
Thanks, Anna. Sorry, Caroline.
Okay.
Beg your pardon. Sorry. Now we're on to Anna. Anna, please, could you introduce yourself?
Kia ora, Anna Bursich from Mitimiti in the far north. I founded Rena Nursery in March last year. Well, yeah, and I just started the idea in March last year, and with the help of Susie Clark from CBEC and Kaitaia, got me cracking on building a nursery here, mainly to eco-source seeds and plant them back into the whenua from which they came, and talking with farmers and people in general about their environmental aspirations. So yeah, very early on the journey, but yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
Awesome, thanks Anna. And last but by no means least, let's go to Michael at FEM. Michael.
Hi, it's Michael. As you can see, I've shaved. So I run a business that works with differently abled folk, be that cognitive or physically impaired. We have 250 plus athletes that we work with on a weekly basis. I think hearing the other two, Caroline and Anna, I'm kind of excited because we have the aspect of offering students from the universities, OT, physio, sport rec, to come in and help our program to develop. I'm trying to look at my camera and not look at you. And we've grown, and we're international now. So we've got some classes beaming out over the world. But I think the most enriching thing about our program is just giving the opportunity for these differently abled folk to live more independent lives through health and fitness.
Thanks very much, Michael. So those are three of our social enterprises. So they've all been through the pivot coaching with Ākina. Obviously, as you can see, three quite different organizations doing very different things, but all for the betterment of the world. So we'll hear a bit more about their sort of work and their experience with the pivot coaching a bit later. Okay, next slide, please, Tam. So first of all, quick sort of introduction about what do we mean by pivot coaching. And of course, when we designed this back in April, pivot wasn't a new word, but it wasn't a word that people were using a lot. Now everyone's completely sick and tired of the word, and so we might have to rebrand the pivot coaching. But anyway, we have it now, so that's what we'll stick with. So back in sort of March, April, we were sort of thinking as an organization how we could respond to the COVID-19 crisis and support social enterprises through this process. We looked a lot at the kind of venture capital thinking around resilience through economic crises, and drew on that thinking from the States and from Europe and from other parts of the world. Originally, we looked a lot around scenario planning, so how social enterprises could plan for different scenarios that might pan out over the following sort of 6 to 12 months, and how they could address various risks and challenges arising from COVID-19. But sort of 6 months on, you know, it's not exactly that things are looking great, but they're not looking nearly as bad as perhaps they were in March and April, for at least for New Zealand. Of course, Europe and America is somewhat different. So what we've kind of tended to focus on is looking at the business model for social enterprises, and using something called the social lean canvas that Rowan mentioned earlier, and who was the design architect for, which came out of the business model canvas. So this is essentially like a business model on a page, which where you run through various aspects of your business to figure out how you're making money and how you're generating impact. And Rowan will talk a bit more about that later. The other thing here is of course that social enterprises are unfortunately, a lot of them are cash strapped, particularly at that early stage and startup stage. But thankfully, what happened because of COVID-19 was that the government decided to put $15 million into a business advisory fund through something called the Regional Business Partnerships Network. That's the RBPN that you see on your slide. So what that fund does is it provides free business advice up to a value of $5,000 for each enterprise that applies for it. Unfortunately, first thing I need to mention is it's only available for registered businesses. So unfortunately, it's not available for charitable trusts, which is a bit of a drawback, and something that we've engaged the government on to see if they can change that. So, but anyway, so the pivot coaching that Ākina provides is fully funded. The government put an extra $25 million in July, which allowed us to really sort of expand this program. It consists of a number of core sort of coaching, one-to-one coaching sessions with the Ākina coaches. And as I said, we use the social link canvas as the framework of thinking to kind of guide those coaching sessions. So generally what we do is we get the social enterprise to look at the social link canvas materials before. So there's a number of videos that Rowan's developed, a number of materials that have been developed. And so that when we get to that first coaching session, the social enterprise has already sort of done some thinking around what their business model and social link canvas looks like. And then we spend that first sort of coaching session of 2 to 3 hours ideating on the canvas, trying to work out how things can improve, how we can embrace those kind of opportunities that are coming out of COVID-19, and there are opportunities, and also address some of the challenges. We also use, because of COVID-19, we've done a lot of this remotely. So we use a software called Mural, which is like a virtual whiteboard where we can basically put the canvas on the whiteboard and we can start throwing in ideas and jotting down ideas on the canvas as we go. And the aim of that sort of the end of that first session is we've got lots of ideas, but we start narrowing down on some of the things that the social enterprise wants to take forward in terms of an action plan. So that's a brief introduction to what the pivot coaching is all about. Tan, can I have the next slide, please? So now we're going to talk through some key themes that have come out through talking through FAM and to Real Nursery and to Fresh Desk and indeed other organisations that we've run this with. So the first one, next slide please, Tam. The first one is about the social link canvas. So Ro, can you tell us a bit about the social link canvas and why it's a valuable tool for pivot coaching?
Absolutely. Some of you who know me will attest to the fact that I could talk for days and days on this, so I'll try and keep this brief and hopefully outline something that's useful as a starting point. But as Guy mentioned, the social link canvas, it was based on some original work done by Alexander Osterwalder in 2008 when he came up with the business model canvas, and then he open sourced it. And so there's sort of various derivations of that, which was the lean canvas. And then Ākina and I worked on creating the social lean canvas for a social enterprise startup weekend back in 2013. And we've been using it since then, but it's also got quite a lot of global traction as a tool for modeling social enterprise. And I think probably the most important function it serves is it gives you the ability to quickly collect together your key ideas about how you think your social enterprise or impact-driven business is going to work in a way that actually makes sense and needs to be coherent. The traditional way of doing it before this, and indeed is still done in lots of cases, is you write a giant business plan. It might take you 3 months to write it. It might be 90 or 100 pages long. And then anything that you want to change in that changes the whole business plan. And it requires you to know enough to be very certain about what you want to do before you do it. Whereas the social link canvas allows you to spitball something and say, hey, what about this? Actually sketch all the key components of it. And so if you actually look at the components of the canvas, and Tan, if we could just grab the next slide, please. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's the one. So I wasn't looking at it because I had some notes here. What you'll see is a set of components that cover off the key things that you need to know in order to make a business model and impact model come together in a way that works. And so it covers off the purpose, why you're there, the impact model, the components that are going to change something in the world in a way that you want to see happen, and then the key components of the business model that you need to get right. And the idea being that this is necessary and sufficient. as in it's all of the key things that you need and none of the things that you don't need is the general idea. And the unique thing about the social link canvas is it's forcing you to actually think about your business model and your impact model on the same page. Because a lot of the time we see ventures may have an impact model that's completely incoherent compared to their business model, or that's completely separate from their business model. And this is where you actually get to, in the early stages, pull them all onto a single page and get to some coherence. And a lot of the times what we end up doing is helping people figure out what they're actually doing. Because sometimes you get a group of founders, it might be 4 or 5 founders come together, you put the canvas out and you get them to start talking through it and you realize they don't agree. They don't agree on really important parts of this. And so early on in the process, you get to kind of have those hard conversations, and anyone who doesn't want to be involved after that can leave, you know, but you get to kind of really crystallize around the thing that you agree that you're going to do, rather than what often happens, which is you all sort of move forward in this sort of out of kilter way, and you don't find out until much later on that you were actually there for different purposes, or you had very different ideas about how this was going to all turn out. And then it tends to get messy and difficult at that point. The other key thing, and I don't want to go into too much detail here, is the social link canvas sets you up to take a customer-driven approach to your business model and impact model. And there's a real key insight here that we use a lot in the pivot coaching, and it comes from someone called Steve Blank, who's the head of innovation at Stanford and Berkeley universities, and he's a sort of decorated entrepreneur. And he makes this distinction. All of you, and I know it'll be at least half of you that have heard me tell the story before, this will just be a refresher in case you forgot. But the difference between a startup and a business, and it's a key thing that runs through all of this, is that a business executes on a known business model and a startup searches for a scalable, repeatable business model. So the startup is a temporary thing, searches for the scalable, repeatable business model, and then when you've found it, then you're a business and you can execute on that known business model. And the problem comes when you confuse the two, and often that's what everyone ends up having to do anyway, because they've already started doing something, so they're already executing, but then they're meant to be searching. And it gets really difficult because, you know, you're trying to make money, but you're also trying to prove, you know, what the business model should be. And the canvas just allows you to separate those things out and say, okay, what are we trying to find here and prove works, so that we can then take the next step and execute on it and be successful. So yeah, I think for me, the canvas is the setup for that ongoing work of validating your business model, you know, sketching out what it is and then following the steps of validating it so you can get to the thing that will scale and repeat in the future. That's probably enough for now, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole session on this, probably we could run, but well, there's the pivot coaching course. But thanks, Roy, for that. I mean, yeah, my sort of take on this is it seems like a really simple model, but it's actually quite sophisticated. The more you get into it, the more nuance there is, and the more detail there is that comes out of it. But it's a really useful framework to kind of, first of all, work out if you've actually got a business that people are going to pay money for your product or service, and who those people are and what problem you're trying to solve, and sort of work through that fairly systematically. And we spend more time on certain sections rather than others, depending on what the client's sort of main interest or needs are. It also identifies where the gaps in the thinking are, I think. But that's enough for me for the moment. But I would just like to open the floor to either Michael, Caroline, or Anna to sort of throw in any perspectives that they have around the social link canvas and how they found that as a framework for the thinking and the coaching. Anyone of you want to jump in? Caroline?
Yeah, me. So the best thing about the social link canvas is it was all set up for me to do in bed on my computer late at night, because it introduced itself with a series of videos by Rowan and talked me the whole way through, and then it had all these examples. So if I didn't get it in the explanation, I got it in the example. And then it was just set up with the tech just there, so I could do my own post-it notes and put it there, and then it was just a great process. That's my feedback.
Oh, nice. Thanks, Caroline. Michael or Anna, do you want to add anything? And don't feel like you have to.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with Caroline. I think the thing that got me about the whole thing was the simplicity of it. It forced me. So something that Guy and Rowan told me that I need to say, my name is Michael and I'm suffering from founder syndrome. I haven't forgotten that. And it's been so amazing that this kind of sorted out a lot of the clutter that I think a lot of people have when they're trying to do this. And what it does is it really focused you to get down to the nitty gritties, and then to ask yourself some seriously hard questions as to where do you go from here. And I found it was so simple, and the simplicity of it was actually the most powerful part of it.
Great, thanks, Michael. Anna, anything?
Yeah, just from my point of view, it just the canvas, like I put the ideas on my canvas, and when Guy looked at it, he just teased out and really, and heightened the my awareness of other possibilities that could be incorporated into my business. So
You're on mute there, Anna.
Have someone there to dissect my canvas and really expose what ideas I'd written on there, and to think of them in a different way. That that really helped a lot. I had all this fuzzy stuff on the paper more or less, and Guy just pulled it to bits, and just encouraged me to think a different way about my canvas. So yeah, awesome tool.
Great, thanks, Anna. Tony, can we have the next slide, please? Right.
Yeah, so I think this is a useful thing to just outline in terms of some of the core of what we're talking about when we talk about a social enterprise or an impact-driven enterprise. And if you maybe Tan, if we could just jump back to a couple, to the Canvas slide. There's a useful kind of collection of things on the canvas that we call the value model. And what we found when working with ventures, especially doing the pivot coaching, is a lot of it tends to rest on this value model piece. And the value model is the engine that drives the business model and then the impact model. And so it consists of the customer segments, which is on the right-hand side. And so that's who you are going to serve with your enterprise. And that includes, say somebody who's going to be buying your product from you. If you're selling a product, it might be the user who's using your product or service but isn't paying for it. It might be a funder who's actually paying for outcomes that come from this. And so it's this sort of understanding really clearly who it is that you're serving. And then we jump across to the other side, which is the problem. And that's understanding the problem that the customer has, because then you get real fidelity around what is it that they are struggling with. And then if you jump to the middle, to the unique value proposition, you then understand what value you can create for them. And so it's really this triad of there's a customer, the customer has a problem, and that you can create value for them by solving that problem. And if you look at any business, this is the core that any business revolves around, is some sort of problem that you can, in a satisfactory way, create value for a customer by solving. And the thing with impact enterprise or social enterprise or whatever, kind of formation of this we have is just a bit more complexity in there than normal, and a real need to be able to drill right down and say, who is it that we're talking about in real fidelity? Because probably the biggest mistake that we see is people kind of just having a very broad set of customer segments. You know, when someone comes along, you say, who's your customer? Well, pretty much anyone. It's like pretty much anyone doesn't help you make this better. And that it's really kind of trying to constrain it and say, okay, who's the fundamental person for whom they have a really obvious, strong problem that's not being satisfied, in a way that you'll completely blow their socks off if you can solve that for them. And that kind of fidelity then allows you to take those next steps of, who are those customers? Can we go and talk to them and find out whether they have that problem and how they're currently solving it, and whether they'll engage with your value proposition. So really early on, you can get to something that's real, because quite often you see, I mean, I've seen businesses, you know, that have had millions of dollars in funding and, you know, 2-3 years down the line and have no idea what value they're creating for their customer, or even worse, don't even know who their customer is. And I've seen whole pitches just crumble into thin air when you start asking those questions. So what we're really focusing on is, how can we get to that crucial stuff early, and then if the revenue model has to change, or the cost structure changes, or the channels change, that's okay, as long as you're hanging on to a really solid value model to drive the whole thing.
Thanks, Ro. Yeah, I think just my sort of perspectives on this is that we have spent a lot of time around the customer segments. That's been a really important part of the coaching, I think, is really understanding who the different customers are, encouraging people to think about customer personas. So this is sort of thinking about how you give your different customer groups a bit of an avatar. You know, it's Barry from Invercargill, who's 40 years old and sort of is into his gym or something like that. So, you know, you're really trying to put yourself in their shoes and think about how they're thinking, and also where they hang out. So in terms of the channels, are these people getting their information from notice boards, or are they getting it from Facebook, or are they on Instagram? Maybe if they're a younger crowd, they're on Instagram. And thinking also about the problem that you're trying to solve, the problem that they have that your product or service can actually solve, and really thinking deeply about that. You know, what's the set of benefits that you bring, the value that you bring that will help them resolve those problems or issues. So yeah, that's a bit from me about sort of customer segmentations. But perhaps I could again throw it open to our social enterprise colleagues, and any perspectives you've got around this sort of customer segmentation, value proposition side of things, and what came out of the coaching for you.
I can talk to that. So for us, we got 2 exact customers, like specific people, one who we already work for and one who we want to work for. And so we used them as our examples all the way through, and made like a customer profile for each. And we found out that, like, we do cleaning, right? Commercial cleaning. We thought that's the value that we provide, but it's not really, because I think that the value that that our customers see in us is that we are doing, you know, the right thing by the cleaners, the right thing by the employment conditions, also measuring, you know, respect in the relationship. So we're trying to make like a really easy contract management for the customers. So what all of that adds up to for our customers is that we're reducing risk. Like we'd never thought we were in the risk reduction business, but we kind of are. You know, we're making ourselves an easy choice for their commercial cleaning needs.
Thanks, Caroline. One thing I also just want to pick up on, and this came through loud and clear, and I think is very typical for social enterprises, is the users are not necessarily the people that are paying for the service or the product. In fact, often with social enterprises, the people that are using the product or service can't afford to pay for the product or service, or pay a full commercial rate. And that's often a challenge for social enterprises that they need to deal with and feel quite uncomfortable about, because am I making a profit out of selling a product or service to this person? I think the thing that we keep on reminding social enterprises is that in order to have an impact, you need a viable business model. And so you can't just be giving away everything for free or at a really, really reduced price. You need to be able to survive and run a business, and then you can scale and have greater impact. The other thing is look at who the funders are. You know, so who are the people with the deep pockets at the moment? Government departments have a lot of money sloshing around, but it could be philanthropic investors, or it could be other customer segments that can cross-subsidize your more vulnerable customer segment. So thinking about that sort of buy one, give one, or similar variations on a theme model. So I just thought I'd mention that. But Michael or Anna, did you want to add anything?
No, not from me.
Go for it, Anna. Sorry,
No, I haven't got.
Not from you. Okay.
Yeah.
Michael, anything from you on sort of maybe on the whole sort of funding, cross-subsidization sort of thing?
Yeah, I think working with the two of you guys, it brought out a crucible that I'm still battling with, but I'm heading in the right direction. So there's some exciting news that's coming out on Friday. But prior to that, I think what this social link canvas teased out for me was, firstly, my demographic is a super highly vulnerable population group that doesn't have much money. And just as Guy was alluding to, is the capacity to pitch higher up. And I realized that I was working within the community, which is all cool and fuzzy, but I wasn't working where the deep pockets are, where the money is, and that's at a higher level. And, my background is I have 25 years in corporate business and like Guy and Ro have done all that cool stuff, but I wasn't applying it to my own business. And my own business is, go to the head that's going to actually got the money and that's going to actually make the decisions. And it's kind of flipping it over and going, hang on a second, I need to change the way that I do things a little bit. And again, it comes back to this whole social lean canvas thing that's on your screen right now. It was just that discussion around finding the funds to give you the runway to actually make a massive impact into this world. And that's why we do the social enterprise stuff. We do it because we want to make an impact. And if we're going to make an impact, make the impact. And the impact is sometimes not groveling for breadcrumbs, but actually asking for the loaf of bread. And to me, that's like the aha moment that just happened. So yeah, awesome stuff.
Thanks, Michael. Okay, let's, Tan, can we have a couple of slides forward, please? Okay, secret sauce. Okay, Rowan. Another thing that sort of emerged from the coaching is that startups in early stage, social enterprises struggle with founder syndrome, and we heard that from Michael a bit earlier. So the struggling with founder syndrome and how to scale. And so what's come out a bit in the conversation is trying to help social enterprises articulate their secret sauce. So can you comment a bit about that?
Yeah, and I think this is one of those things that's subtle, but it's kind of almost the whole thing, which is that the difference between being able to create value for someone in a way that's useful, and that might be in a way that they'll pay you for, or in a way that will benefit their lives in some way. The difference between that and being able to build something that can create impact at scale is fundamentally different, even though it feels like the same thing. So you do something and that's great, but getting that to happen without you doing it is the real challenge. And it's the alchemy of this whole process. And so when we talk about adding or leveraging a business model to make that happen, it requires a product development mindset. And so we quite often see in the community space, people that just have magical, amazing skills at being able to change people's lives and have impact. But then translating that into something that can scale becomes the challenge. And that's certainly what you were referring to, Michael, in terms of you've got this incredible ability to impact people's lives, and then wrestling with how does it just not require you working 28 days a week to try and make that happen. And so that really requires zeroing in on what's the actual pieces of process or things that can be turned into process or artifacts or products that can do the work for you. And so it's really about understanding, okay, what is magical about the way you do something? Can that be codified? Can it be turned into materials that people can learn from, videos and course materials? Can it be turned into a training program for coaches or counselors or facilitators or whatever that happens to be? And that's the thing that quite often people are struggling with, and it doesn't feel like a big step, but it's actually a giant leap. But if you can get it right and you have something that can actually scale, then you do have that ability to create impact. And so, so for you, Caroline, it's about how do you take your processes and the magic that the two of you are bringing and be able to turn that into multiple, business units or multiple areas or jurisdictions that don't require you to be there in person and bring the magic every time. And so, yeah, just having a bit of a product mindset and being able to zero in on what's the stuff anyone can do. And if you hire a halfway decent person, they'll be able to do that for you. But what's the magic bit that you're going to have to add to it to make it work? And that's really fun to do that, but it is also really challenging.
Thanks, Ro. And yeah, I think, it's about how you kind of articulate that secret sauce and give it a bit of a name so that it's what you become known for. That's the FAM way, or that's the Reno way, or that's the Fresh Desk way. It's got a particular name that resonates, that builds on your unique value proposition. And in terms of scale, if you can kind of codify what you do and sort of run through what it is that's special about your approach, then it allows you to train others and certify others in your product or your service, which allows you to step back from doing everything as the founder and trying to do everything and get others to do it with you and for you. So you can really achieve that greater scale. But let's just hear from our social enterprises again, see if they've got any thoughts on secret sauce. Don't be shy, Caroline. I think you said you were going to talk about this.
Okay, I can talk. I just am aware that I've been talking a lot. Yeah, so this was like the most massive thing that Ākina helped us with. And I remember, Rowan, you explained it. You were like, you got to do like a meme of what, and I was like, memes, like on it. Anyway, so, or, you explained it different ways. Like if it's a McDonald's franchise, you got to think it's the operations manual that, or KFC with this 11 different herbs and spices. So what are those 11 different herbs and spices, and where have you got it recorded, and how are you going to get people, write that down, codify it, and then bring people on board. So I think what we did with you guys was do the first version of it, and it was, messy as, and we've now done a second version of it. And I think the third version of it is going to be collaborative, right? We're going to take it to a team meeting and do some, what are they called? Sticky Post-it notes, and have our team rank what's important and what we've just chucked in there because we like the sound of the words. But yeah, that first thing that you guys got us to do, we got quite into it. We were using mural and whatever, and doing, hands showing the support and trees showing the land, and we got quite creative with it because you opened it up for us to play with it, which was really cool. Yeah, but I think it's a work in progress, and we're only scratching the surface.
Thanks, Caroline. Anna or Michael?
Secret sauce. I haven't found mine yet.
What's your secret sauce, Anna?
Oh gosh, I think it's my mouth. It's just talking all the time to people when I go out. Yeah, making those connections a lot. Like just the weekend gone, I was on a full-on building a food forest for a family, helping build their food forest on their whenua. So, and a lot of like-minded people there. So, we just generally talk the talk all the time. So yeah, it is my mouth, the secret sauce, I'm afraid.
And your sort of local knowledge, your networks, your
Yes.
understanding of what native plants should be planted where, and that's all part of that package that,
Yes.
that enables you to not just be a nursery, but potentially a consultancy as well.
Yes, and I did forget to mention that earlier. Thank you, Rowan. Paul, Guy, you pulled that out of the hat during one of our sessions. I didn't even have a clue that it was already there, sitting there, and Guy just, made me really aware of, you do all this stuff, you talk to a lot of people, you know a lot of stuff. Why don't you consult? And I'm going, huh? It's the light bulb moment. So yeah, no, that was great. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Okay.
I think just very quickly, the secret sauce. I'm like, and I haven't figured mine out yet, but kind of where we're going is the second lockdown has kind of repivoted me again to understand that I need to do something. So it's been an interesting couple of weeks to understand, firstly, what the social lean canvas does into where you're going to take the business going forward, and how are you going to truly maximize and monetize what you're trying to do, and not be ashamed to be a social enterprise that's going to make money at the same time give back to the community. And it's just joining those two things together. So I'm kind of like my other two colleagues on the panel with me. I've got a journey to go and a couple of iterations to still do, but we're moving forward slowly, but we're moving.
Thanks, Michael. Tan, can we have the next slide, please? Okay. When attempting to pivot a business model, a lot of attention needs to be paid to helping a venture to get real clarity about what it is they're proposing. Ro, can you tell us a little bit about this process and the sort of importance of simplicity and clarity? You're on mute, Ro.
Unmute yourself. Awesome. Unmuted. Yeah, definitely. That one of the things I've seen time and time again across social enterprises and non-profits and startups and big businesses for that matter, is that a lack of, no matter how many resources you've got, if you don't have clarity about the direction you're going in, it's not going to work. And one of the things that we've noticed with pivot coaching and with coaching in general is the more you can narrow down to clarity, the more you can kind of crystallize the thing that's going to be valuable and the way of doing it that's going to be valuable, the more effectively everyone can work towards it. And there's a model that you're probably all sick of by now, but for those of you that haven't seen it, which we call the 3 circles model. And it has MVP in a little wee circle, and success in a big circle, and a giant circle with fantasy written on it. And it just forces you to say, what do you think you can succeed with? Because everyone will sit there, especially when you're pivoting, there's just like, well, we could do this and we could do that, and we could advertise and we could get some sponsors and we could this, and it's going to be great. And you just have to be able to go, okay, what do you think you can succeed with? What do you think you'd like to do one day, but isn't necessary to get you to success? That can go in the fantasy bucket. All the stuff that you need to succeed now goes in the success bucket. And the MVP bucket is, what are you going to do to prove that success is possible? And what it just allows you to do is take all of those ideas that, half the people in the room are just sort of hanging on to their one idea, and you get to be able to say, hey, that's not the thing that's going to get us to success. Let's just park it. Let's park it in the fantasy bucket, and we'll do it when we've got success. But it just allows you to sort of clear out a whole bunch of that noise. And so it's the same process for customer segments, that if you talk to someone, you say, who are your customers? And they give you a list of 10 different types of customers. If you go out and try and talk to customers and understand their problems and the value proposition that will appeal to them, if you were talking across 10 different groups of people, and they're all going to have slightly different problems, and they're all going to have slightly different value propositions, you're just going to get back a lot of noise. You know, you're just going to get, you know, from those conversations, you're just going to be, you know, you're not going to know what to do with all that information. But if you've got this really nice, clear definition of your customer, really nice persona that articulates who they are, and you can go and talk to them, then what you're getting back is signal rather than noise. And that's the thing to hone into, that we've really found, is that if you can reduce the noise and boost up the signal with very few resources, you can actually make progress. But if it's all noise, you know, you could have 20 people working on it and they still won't get anywhere good. So yeah, that real, just almost religious focus on getting to simplicity, I think, is important.
Can I say something on that?
Mm.
So that's why it was super good that we had that one customer, remember, that we were really focusing on, and they had some documentation about their needs. And so it was like you guys came into our organization and sat down and were like, okay, well, what do they want? What do they actually want there? And what are they specifically talking about? So we could put all our fantasy ideas to the side and just listen to what our customer was saying. And that was really great. And also because, you know, you hear the way I talk, right? I talk in a kind of informal register, whereas you guys had a business register, and you developed our, you know, written communication to be much more elegant and use the jargon that our customer was using, and that was really helpful.
Awesome.
Thanks, Caroline. Yeah, I think the other thing is that what we found is in the first session, you get a canvas that looks really messy, right? You've got lots of ideas all over the place, and it all seems a bit unclear. But the idea is by the end of that first session, there's a few ideas that you want to take forward between the first session and the second session. So normally what we advise is, you know, you do a particular canvas for a particular opportunity, and just focus that canvas on that one opportunity or that one customer segment. And if you need to do another opportunity or another customer segment, do another canvas. So it's really trying to sort of like bring that clarity and simplicity to the fore. Tan, could I have the next
Guy, I think we've got 10 minutes. Do we want to skip the last question and go to make sure we get some Q&A in? Do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good idea. Yeah, we were going to talk about online presence, but we can always come back to that perhaps after the Q&A. But let's move to the Q&A. How should we do this? If you could perhaps signal to Tan by putting up your hand or putting a question in the question box, and then Tan, maybe you could read out the question, and either Rowan and I can try and answer the question.
I'll just stop sharing the screen now, Guy. We won't need anything.
Well, we'll need to come back to it because we just got some information at the end.
Okay, it's up to you. We can.
Or if you want to stop sharing and we can come back to it.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Thanks.
All right. Well, I think we had one, didn't we? We had a question in the chat box. I think from Coco. Coco was asking about unfair advantage. Maybe Rowan, do you want to tackle that one? What unfair advantage means?
I can't see the question.
It might have been just gone to you, Guy, because I didn't see it either.
Okay.
Potentially. Yeah, perhaps if you read out the question and.
Yeah, or Coco, you can just ask the question.
Yeah, sure.
Hi. So in that sheet, canvas, yeah, I saw the word unfair advantage, and it seems very unusual to me. And then, so can you give me some idea what it is, please?
Yeah. I remember when we were developing the canvas and people were just like, we don't like the word unfair. Like, we're all about fairness and we really don't like this unfair advantage thing. But what it's referring to is if you're going to succeed in business and social enterprise and impact-driven enterprise, there's got to be something about what you're doing that gives you an advantage. If, for example, lots of people want to do social enterprise cafes, and you know, we're going to do a social enterprise cafe, we're going to train at-risk youth to be baristas, or we're going to provide discounted meals for people in food poverty and things like that. And just running a cafe is really, really hard. You know, most cafes don't succeed. So running a cafe where you've got all this extra cost of training at-risk youth or giving away food or whatever is doubly hard. So the unfair advantage is to say, well, what's different and special about what you're doing that's going to give you an advantage compared to all the other cafes? And so it could be something as simple as, well, because we're a social enterprise, the council will give us the premises for free, so we don't have to pay rent, and that's our unfair advantage. Or it could be you partner with, you know, with a famous person, you know, Jamie Oliver partners with you, and you brand your cafe up to have Jamie Oliver on it, and it's like, that's an unfair advantage. So what's the thing that gives you your ability to be successful? Because a lot of people end up doing things where you kind of look at it and you go, it kind of looks okay on paper, but I don't see what's actually going to make it succeed in a competitive world. Does that make sense? Cool.
Yeah, I mean, some other examples of unfair advantage might be, you know, if you're able to draw on a volunteer network, that obviously gives you the ability to scale and also reduces your costs. Or it might be that you've got, you know, in-depth technical knowledge about a particular issue or problem or product that you can bring to bear. So, like, for example, Anna's expertise around native tree planting in the local area, you know, that technical knowledge, or indeed Michael's knowledge of physio and working with people with disabilities, you know, that technical knowledge about what movement works and what doesn't for certain people with certain disabilities. So that's the kind of, yeah, the thing we're talking about with unfair advantage. Right. Anyone else want to ask a question? Oh yeah, here we go. Bruce, do you maybe you want to read this one out, Bruce?
Sure. I was super interested. Thank you very much for the good description of the great work, obviously, that you did. And I really appreciate the social entrepreneurs being here to describe what they did and what it meant for them. So really my question is for all of you involved in the process is, what pivoted? This was pivot coaching. What pivoted for you? Was it the business model? Was it your impact model? Was it both? Or what makes this pivot coaching rather than just really good business consulting?
Nice question.
I can speak to that. So for us, we were ready to pivot, right? We're a cleaning company after COVID. We thought we were going to all be about deep cleans and fogging procedures and hygiene and all of this. And so we put that to the boys, Ākina boys, and they put it back on us and they were like, yeah, is this a go? This is a hygiene cleans? And we're like, no, actually, turns out we don't think that's where we should be focusing our energy, because, you know, let's hope this is a temporary global pandemic. And actually, we want to keep doing what we're doing. So we expected to pivot, but we actually didn't. So what changed for us was elevated professionalism in our approach, understanding our customers better, and articulating what we can offer.
I'm going to jump in before Anna. Bruce, great question. I think all three, to me, for me, I was kind of hesitant to go online and do kind of like what everyone else in the world is doing within my world, personal training and online stuff. The pivot for me was I was hesitant to do that. The business process or the business model wasn't refined enough. And working with Rowan Guy, I think it kind of brought a catalyst together that I need to do both. So I need to refine my processes within my business, and at the same time, I need to look at where I'm going to in the future and what is the future. And I kind of think our world has changed. So our world has gone online. Thank goodness the internet didn't die. But I think you know, I've realized now, and the fact that I've actually grown my business through COVID and through lockdown, that I'm now international, that I'm now going, whoa, hang on a second, there's a huge market out here that I was kind of nervous and scared to tackle, but now I've just got to go there. I've just got to go do that, and I've just got to actually get myself going. And I think your questions are really, really, it's a great question. And yes, all three were important to me.
Mm. And if no one else is going to pipe up, I'd say that probably one of the subtle things about it, Bruce, is pivot coaching. Calling it pivot coaching actually gave us as the coaches and the ventures license to actually talk about big change, because quite often it's about, okay, what have you got and how might you incrementally improve it? But sort of setting that context at the start, which is what we want is a change of direction. And even though, as you say, Caroline, you ended up kind of going, actually, we don't want to change of direction. It just sets up a different kind of conversation, because you actually go looking for what's the, you know, what might be that change of direction as opposed to what might be the sort of incremental improvement.
Yeah, so for me, one of the pivot for me was actually there's another facet that I didn't think about within my business, and that the pivot was I can consult within my business as opposed to just growing trees and giving it to everybody, selling them. So that was the pivot for me that Guy brought out for me. It's expanding your thinking within your business, and having someone look from the outside and really help you to understand your business and where it can take you. So that for me was the main pivot. It was, not only can I grow trees and sell trees, but I can also consult. No, I never thought of it.
Mm. Awesome.
Great, thanks, Anna. We've got Susie from CBAC. I hate to put you on the spot, Susie, but did you want to throw in anything at this stage? You're on mute.
Kia ora koutou, everyone. I'm Susie Clark from CBEC here in Kaitaia. I've been working with Anna, how long now, Anna? Over a year now, maybe. My learnings is I maybe had some shortcomings and with regards to the social enterprise and the way I utilised it. Now I see it in a different light. I use it for my own side hustles now, and I had 10 concepts, and with the social link canvas I culled it down to 2. So it's been very helpful in that sense. With the mural software, that's been a godsend, because you can do it real time with the venture. The way your concept just is always evolving. When we started with Anna, it's completely different now. The goals, there's been a shift. I think, Anna, I don't know about you and how you want your business to go. The consulting is huge. That is an area where Anna can still do what she likes to do, her passion, but there's this revenue stream in there, and we never spoke about that when we first looked at the social link canvas. So that for me has been a huge learning. So Guy's been amazing for me. It's the way I utilize the social link canvas going forward. I see it in a different light.
Thanks, Susie, and sorry to put you on the spot there, but I thought it'd be remiss given you're also a fellow coach. Are there any other questions or comments, perspectives that anyone's got? If not, we can sort of jump to the final slide and we can wrap things up. But I just want to give anyone the sort of final chance to ask any question or chip in.
can I just add one more chip in? And I think, you know, and this comes back to the question from Bruce, and that is doing the social lean canvas and doing all the stuff with Ākina and getting a business up and running and having mentors assisting you is all good and fine. You've still got to do it in the graft. You've still got to put in the work. And I think the manner and the way in which it was done was super gentle, but in a good way. It was get out there and go and do it. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen. And I think that's important to remember. You've still got to do a lot of work, and don't be fooled when doing a social enterprise or a business. There's a lot of work involved.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
What did Edison say? Invention is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. I don't think that's changed.
Great. Hey, thanks, everyone. Okay, Tam, would you mind just sharing your screen again, if we can do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Brian, Rowan, just while I'm sharing the screen, can you please put in your contact details just through the chat? It just allows people to be able to contact you after this.
Was that me? Sorry.
Oh, both of you. Yeah. So it's just that people could be going now, or hopefully you do stay, but it just allows people to be able to contact you if they need to. We'll just get up that.
And I see Tan's also put a plug in for the other Aotearoa Conversations happening this week, so you can go to that program there and have a look.
Yeah, that'd be really great. There's a lot of things happening. So it's at 10 o'clock, 1 o'clock and 3 p.m. Each day. We just had a special one today at 5 p.m. I'll head back to you, Guy.
Okay, just go on to the next slide, please. And the next one. Okay, so just in case there are any organisations out there that are interested in doing the pivot coaching with Ākina, there's a link there to the Regional Business Partnerships Network website, where you can register your business to get the vouchers. And there's also some information on our website around our capability building support. We have the COVID-19 pivot coaching, but we also have developed a new program on impact management. And that is also part funded. That one's only 50% funded through the Regional Business Partnerships Network, but you can find more information about that on our website as well. So with that, I would just like to thank everyone for participating today, particularly our social enterprises who are on our panel, and also my awesome fellow coach, Rowan. Thanks very much. It's been a lot of fun, and we are continuing to do this coaching. So we've got a couple more this week, and yeah, I just wish you a good afternoon and ngā mihi nui.
And yeah, likewise from me. Thanks so much for participating, all of you. Really, really appreciate it.